What excites me about youth ministry? Youth ministry has been at the core of my being since I probably entered my first junior high program at actually age. And when I was 14, I felt a call to ministry, and then between my freshman and sophomore year in high school, I felt a call to youth ministry in particular, and that over the next years, the few years that followed, was confirmed again and again and again by youth pastors, by um, the district youth leader, and it just was one of those things that God had sort of put youth ministry, or put me on a path towards doing youth ministry in such a way that was undeniable, and I followed that path. And I'm sure the big question, if it's not on your list, is how does someone go from a PhD into a church?
It's on there.
Over the last 4 years, I've looked at youth ministry in the church, in the Presbyterian Church in particular, and said, what is going on in our church and youth ministry? What is going on nationally? What is going on locally? What are the problems that we're facing? Why do we have young people, when they hit the age of 22, hemorrhaging out of our church and never returning until maybe in their 30s? And so those are the questions that I've been wrestling with, and how we can actually address those, and how we can rethink those, and how we can improve the practices that we have in the church. So for me, the PhD was always connected to the church.
Okay.
It was never disconnected, because in practical theology, you don't just start with a theoretical view of church. It always starts first with the church. It starts first with what is going on the ground. And so for me, it says, what's going on in youth ministry, and how can we improve it? How can we change it? How can we prepare ourselves? How can we correct those things that have fallen into the wayside? And so God has just sort of given me an opportunity, a real privilege, to be a part of a larger conversation with youth ministry academics and incredible practitioners, to say, how might we improve what we do? And so it's exciting for me, returning to the UPC part, it's exciting for me to say, okay, I've spent a period of my life in practice, and I've had this hiatus where I've actually been able to take the experiences that I had and draw upon them in my own sort of conceptual ideas of saying, what should be happening? How can we improve these things? And say, you know what? It's now time to return to the church what God has formulated, and what God has worked, and what God has been doing inside my own spirit and inside my own mind over the last 4 years.
How do you envision family ministry fitting into your vision of youth ministry?
For far too long, families have been disconnected from youth ministries. It's sort of been like this sort of alien abduction, where you're taking the youth out of the family unit and saying, let's do some ministry over here. And the parents, who may have felt like, oh, I don't know how and again, as I speak to parents and talk to parents, and the biggest fear parents often face is, how do I teach my children faith? How do I pass on my faith? And so part of it is the church's answer is, well, let us have them for a little while. Let us have them for a couple nights a week, and we'll do that job for you. The problem is that that's not an answer. It's not oh, wait, take the back. It is an answer. It's not a sustainable answer.
Mm.
Because youth ministries and churches tend to have young people for, if we're lucky, 5 to 6 hours a week, where we actually have contact time with the kids, and on a really good week, maybe through a couple other activities, it might be bumped up to sort of an 8 to 10 range, or if there's a missions trip, it's longer. But it means a large part of that formation is actually happening in the home, or should be happening in the home. Youth ministry is not doing its job if families aren't involved. And a youth pastor is not doing their job if they are not connecting the families to, and part of it, you have a family, and the family has teenagers, but they may also have grade school kids, or they may have, even younger children. And so you can't really separate and say, okay, we're going to take the kids over here, the adults over here. And when we start doing that, we get this ministry that doesn't really, you're always sort of, well,
You're all independent.
we become marketing. We're no better than a marketing agency that says, we're just going to give you exactly what you want. And the problem is that when things change and people want different things, then all of a sudden the church is bending over backwards just to accommodate people. rather than saying there's something unique, there's something special, there's something living here in this community that will shape and transform you. And when you leave this community, it will be such a part of who you are that when you go onto the stage of your own life, where you're in college across the country, or you know, hundreds of miles from here, that you'll say, where can I find this? I know that there's a myth that it rains all the time in Seattle,
It's a myth.
and people, you know, I lived, you know, in Columbus. It was overcast all the time. I lived in London for a couple of years, and that was, you know, rainy
Yes.
and you know, turbulent weather. In Germany, it rained a lot too. When I was in Germany, it spittled all the time. So, you know, weather comes, weather goes. You just sort of fare with it. I mean, quite frankly, I live about 2 blocks from Route 1 in New Jersey, which, and you can smell the exhaust. So I'm sure that I can deal with a little rain for clean air.
Clean air, yeah.
So, I mean, I'm not, yeah, so rain doesn't bother me.
What do you like to do for fun?
Oh boy. In my spare time, being with my family. I like to play Legos with my son, or I should say, build with Lego,
Yeah.
because apparently it's not a plural. I like to build
Oh.
with Lego blocks with my son. We like to hike. You know, we like to go on bike rides, and so we're active
The
people.
outdoors.
Yeah, I actually, my son Judah got a skateboard for Christmas, and I actually bought one as well. I was a
Really?
skateboarder when I was in
Really?
7th and 8th grade. Yeah, I used to skate for several years of my life, and I decided I thought no one will go out with him, and he can't be out there by himself, and so I'm going to get one, and I'm not trying any tricks or anything, but I can cruise around still. My muscle memory is held on.